Welcome, my dear Aries souls, both new visitors and longtime companions, to my channel Zodiac Talks Tarot. Today's message is one of those cosmic mirrors that forces us to laugh, sigh, and reflect all at once. Think of this not just as a tarot reading, but as a deep conversation between ancient symbolism, human psychology, and the fiery unpredictability of Aries energy. Paolo opens with a reminder that no reading fits everyone perfectly. Just as a seasoned psychologist would never judge a person on one fleeting expression, we cannot judge a destiny on a single sign. He wisely invites us to check the ascendant, Moon, Venus, and Jupiter placements because the truth of love, as every philosopher knows, hides in many corners of the chart, not in one shining spotlight. And so, Aries, what's the theme? Relationships, of course. If life were a novel, you would always be written into the chapter where passion enters like a storm and exits like thunder. The Two of Cups dances onto the stage, promising unions, romances, or the complicated endurance of an existing bond. Yet, like every Greek tragedy worth remembering, shadows slip in. The Four of Pentacles whispers stagnation, someone gripping too tightly as though love were a possession and not a partnership. The Seven of Cups teases illusions, the kind that promise castles in the sky while hiding cracks in the foundation. And if this sounds familiar, it is the very rhythm of Aries love. Fast passion, high flames, and then that inevitable moment of realization, wait a second, what now? Here lies the duality, the boldness to leap headfirst into love, and the vulnerability of discovering that not every leap lands on solid ground. As a researcher of human behavior, I see this pattern time and again. Passion without pause leads to questions without answers. But as a student of both philosophy and Buddhist wisdom, I must also say, there is nothing wrong with this dance. The fire of Aries teaches the rest of us how to live fully, even if it means stumbling. The key is not to avoid the stumble, but to understand what it reveals. So, Aries, while you may laugh at yourself for rushing into romances like a hero charging into battle without armor, remember that this is your gift and your lesson. To feel deeply, to love fiercely, to discover where illusions hide, and to know when to let go. In this year of triumph 2025, the chosen ones among you are being asked to grow not by extinguishing the flame, but by learning how to carry it wisely. After all, passion without wisdom burns out, but passion with awareness lights the path ahead. When we arrive at this point in the reading, the Five of Swords and Five of Cups step onto the stage, and suddenly we are no longer watching a playful argument but a Shakespearean quarrel. This is not the who forgot to do the dishes kind of spat, it's the kind that rattles the walls, where words cut like blades and silence feels even sharper. I've studied human relationships for decades, and one truth remains constant: when swords meet cups, somebody is bound to cry. It's the collision of raw intellect with raw emotion, the head against the heart, and no referee in sight. Aries, you know this pattern well. You rush into battles with passion, but sometimes passion wins the war and leaves the kingdom in ruins. And yet, hidden behind the noise, grief lingers, whispering the possibility that this chapter might be closing. But then, as every good novel does, the scene shifts. The Seven of Wands appears, fiery and determined, clashing with the great equalizer, justice. Here, my dear Aries, is the karmic scale, the point where the universe demands an answer. Do you fight tooth and nail to protect the bond, or do you surrender and let the truth divide what no longer stands? This is not a game for half measures, and certainly not a place for Aries' impatience to play hero without a plan. As a Buddhist might say, clinging only deepens suffering, but courageously letting go can free the heart. And in the grand comedy of Aries' life, you will likely laugh at the memory later, realizing that your fiercest battles taught you not just how to fight, but when to walk away. The Nine of Swords arrives like that unwelcome guest who knocks at 3 in the morning, bringing restless thoughts, sleepless nights, and the kind of anxiety that no cup of chamomile tea can cure. It's the card of tossing, turning, and asking yourself those dangerous questions. What if I had done this differently? What if I never find peace again? As someone who has spent years studying the human mind and the cycles of the zodiac, I'll tell you, this is the moment when Aries learns that even the strongest warrior can be trapped in their own head. But then comes salvation, the world. This is not just any ending, it's liberation. It's the symbolic closing of a long, messy chapter and the first inhale of freedom. And remember, this is the year of triumph 2025. You can't march into triumph dragging a suitcase of regrets behind you. Aries, your spirit, fiery and impatient, already knows it's time to drop the baggage and breathe again, even if you still complain that letting go feels too slow. Then, shifting the scene, enters the Queen of Swords, and here, Aries, is the real twist. She is cool, strategic, even a little intimidating. This is not your usual impulsive fire, rushing in without a helmet. No. This is Aries borrowing the sharp clarity of an air sign, stepping into logic with the precision of a surgeon. The Queen does not waste time with tears or tantrums, she cuts clean. And this is where psychology meets astrology. The decision is no longer emotional, it's rational. It's the moment the general ends the war, not because they lack courage, but because they know too many soldiers have already fallen. For Aries, this is rare wisdom, choosing not just to win, but to end the fight altogether. And ironically, that's the truest victory of them all. The Five of Cups shows its face again, as if to remind Aries that no matter how brave the front, sorrow lingers like smoke after a fire. The suffering is real and cannot be ignored. Yet just when the heart feels heavy, the King of Wands strides in, commanding, confident, and very much the embodiment of Aries energy. This king doesn't wallow, he acts. And that's the lesson here: enough waiting. If something is broken, you either fix it with bold determination or, in true Aries fashion, burn it down and start from scratch. After all, isn't there a small part of you, Aries, that secretly enjoys being the one to strike the match and declare, out with the old, in with the new? Psychology would call it impulsivity, I prefer to call it creative destruction. Then the story deepens. Justice and the Hierophant appear together, offering the possibility of agreements, perhaps even reconciliation under wise counsel. Yet, like a stern teacher, the Lovers and the Four of Cups speak more harshly. Love without joy is not love, it is a cage with gilded bars. And here lies the timeless truth echoed in Buddhist teaching: clinging only multiplies suffering. To release is not defeat, it is compassion, both for yourself and for the other. Aries, you were not made to live half alive, pacing back and forth behind emotional walls. You were made to love fiercely, to fight bravely, and yes, to let go when the heart no longer sings. Better a clean ending than the slow poison of dissatisfaction. And though endings sting, they also carry a spark of liberation, the promise of building again, this time with more wisdom, and perhaps just as much fire. The Oracle deck, with all its mysterious elegance, reminds us that when it comes to love, intuition is the compass. You can analyze charts, collect data, and even run the numbers like a Wall Street analyst, but when two hearts collide, the truth reveals itself most clearly in that quiet inner voice. And believe me, after decades of studying both psychology and the esoteric traditions, I'll say this with conviction: intuition often outperforms statistics in matters of the heart. If the gut says something is off, it usually is. Ignore it at your peril. Aries, you might pride yourself on your bold courage, your willingness to jump first and ask questions later, but here's where your fire sign impulsiveness needs a little wisdom. The couple is real, yes, but so are the struggles, and pretending otherwise only delays the inevitable. And just when the cards seem to soften, trouble arrives in a form you cannot ignore. The Rat's card scurries across the table, signaling deceit, erosion of trust, and the kind of subtle betrayals that nibble away at love until nothing remains but crumbs. Pair that with the Bear card, and suddenly we're dealing with possessiveness and narcissism, the suffocating energy of someone who mistakes control for devotion. Now, Aries, you're a sign that thrives on passion and intensity, but let's be honest, if love starts feeling like 24-hour surveillance, that's not romance, that's prison. And no fire sign was born to live behind bars. In society, we often romanticize jealousy as proof of love, but psychologists and anyone who has lived long enough know better. Jealousy is not love, it's fear in disguise. And when it grows unchecked, it devours trust. In Buddhist teaching, clinging rooted in fear only multiplies suffering. True love allows freedom, not chains. So take this as both a warning and a challenge, Aries, don't confuse possession with passion. If the red flags are flashing like neon lights on a Vegas strip, it's probably time to step back, breathe, and remember that love without freedom isn't love at all, it's just a pretty cage. The Dog card steps forward first, and with it comes the reminder of loyalty and dependency. In love, loyalty is noble, but dependency is dangerous, it blurs the line between devotion and fear. Here we see one partner clinging tightly, perhaps believing that staying is proof of strength. But the Heart card whispers a deeper truth, genuine feelings remain, and even in the battlefield of love, Aries, your heart stubborn and fiery refuses to lay down its sword. You may walk away, but you never surrender without leaving a mark. Then comes the twist, the kind every novelist waits to write and every astrologer waits to reveal. The night rides in with the moon, and suddenly the stage lights up with revelation. Someone, somewhere in this story, has been hiding another love. A secret affair, a truth buried but restless, waiting for the moment it can no longer be contained. And here's where the cosmic comedy comes in. Aries often discovers these things last, but reacts first, and let's be honest, no one reacts with quite the fireworks you do. Expect passion, expect confrontation, and yes, expect the kind of drama that could make even Shakespeare take notes. By the final act, betrayal and tension rise to the surface. A decision is made, a divorce requested, a chapter closed not with hesitation but with finality. Painful? Without question. But let us not confuse pain with defeat. For in this ending lies liberation. To walk away from what no longer holds joy is to step into the possibility of joy renewed. Aries, in your fiery wisdom, you know that life is too short to be spent in cages, and too precious to waste on love that has turned into a shadow. Here, then, is the core message: a relationship ends, yes, but not as tragedy. It ends as a gateway, a clearing of space for something new. As the chosen ones in the year of triumph 2025, you are reminded that the universe does not punish, it redirects. It takes away only what you refuse to release, and in doing so, it clears your path. And if you can laugh at the absurdity of it all, even betrayal, even endings, that is pure Aries medicine. After all, no sign is better at turning ashes into fuel for the next fire. So, dear Aries, breathe deep. Celebrate not what you've lost, but what you've learned. Step forward not with regret, but with renewed courage. Life, after all, was never meant to be endured, it was meant to be savored. And if you've enjoyed this journey with me, I invite you to like, share, and subscribe to Zodiac Talks Tarot. Together, we'll keep exploring the stars, the stories, and the secrets that shape our human hearts.